All right, today we're going to connect some dots that on the surface look totally separate. We've got one of the biggest crypto frauds ever. Then there's this new surveillance system that's reportedly being built to track your wealth. And finally, we have this timeless idea, this code of silence that might just be your only defense. It's a story all about secrets, lies, and, well, your money. So our story really kicks off with a character who feels like he was written for a Hollywood movie, right? Sam Bankman-Fried. You know him, the supposed prince of crypto. He was that nerdy genius you saw everywhere, always in cargo shorts, promising he was going to use what he called magic internet money to literally save the world. But then, SBF's entire house of cards just completely collapsed. And that, as you can imagine, triggered a huge reaction. People totally lost faith in these digital systems. They started pulling their money out and moving it into physical assets. And that's where things get really interesting. According to our sources, that's exactly when a different kind of empire started being built, one specifically designed to watch where all that money was going. And this all brings us to the central question we're tackling today. When public trust is completely shattered and it feels like every private transaction is being watched, what's your best strategy? What do you do? In this crazy high-stakes game, is just keeping quiet? Is silence your only real defense? Okay, let's dive right in. And we have to start with the spectacular collapse of FTX. Because really, to get why people reacted the way they did, you first have to understand the crime itself. And trust me, it was a big one. So at its absolute peak, this was the valuation of Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto exchange FTX. $32 billion. I mean, just let that sink in. This was an empire built not on actual profits, but on pure hype, a relentless marketing machine, and a token that he literally just printed out of thin air. And the whole world was told, this is it. This is the safest exchange, a revolution in finance. So how did the fraud actually work? Well, it was a play taken straight out of the old Enron handbook. SBF used his personal trading firm, a company called Alameda Research, basically as a secret back door. He used it to funnel billions of dollars in customer funds right out of FTX. And then he'd use that money to make all these incredibly risky bets, propping the whole thing up with his own made-up token as collateral. It's almost exactly what Enron did with its shell companies to hide all that debt. And you know it's just wild? The speed of it all, it was just breathtaking. In 2021, SBF was on top of the world, right? He was the anti-Wall Street hero. But by November of 2022, a rival started asking questions about his books, and that triggered an old-fashioned bank run. In just 72 hours, 3 days, customers tried to pull $6 billion out. But the money, it was just gone. His $32 billion empire basically evaporated. And by 2023, he was a convicted felon. Just like that. So the big takeaway from the whole FTX disaster is a lesson that's as old as money itself. It doesn't matter if it's 1929, 2001 with Enron, or 2022 with FTX, the story is always the same. Greed, especially when you build it on a foundation of lies, it doesn't scale. It never does. Now, look. A fraud this massive, it has consequences that go way beyond just one company going bankrupt. It completely shatters trust in the entire system. And when that happens, people start to react in some pretty predictable ways. And it poses this really fundamental question for investors everywhere, right? I mean, if the supposedly safest and most regulated crypto exchange was actually just a hollow shell, who can you trust with your money? Where do you even go for real security? Well, the answer, according to our sources, is a flight to two things: privacy and hard assets. People start looking for stuff the government can't just print more of, and things that aren't controlled by some 20-something CEO sitting on a beanbag. They turn to physical assets, like gold and silver, as a hedge against this kind of systemic risk, and of course, currency devaluation. Okay, so here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. We have to look at how the system is reportedly reacting to this flight to privacy. Because as people are trying to move their wealth out of the digital world and into physical things, well, a whole new infrastructure is allegedly being built just to watch them do it. So the core claim from our source material is pretty straightforward. New government regulations and reporting requirements are creating a kind of surveillance net around precious metals transactions, a net that has never existed before. The goal, they argue, is to build a massive federal database of who owns these kinds of assets. Now, it's really important to be clear about this part. Our sources actually present some conflicting details on exactly how this system works. As you can see, one source points to a new $600 reporting threshold using a 1099 form, and that's set to take effect in 2025. But then another source claims there's a more immediate rule effective this year that requires dealers to report cash purchases over $3,000. So while the specifics are a little different, the alleged direction of travel is exactly the same: lower thresholds and a whole lot more tracking. So this new environment introduces a really major risk called structuring. You might have heard it called smurfing. It's basically the crime of intentionally breaking up a large transaction into smaller ones just to stay under that reporting limit. And the sources warned that you don't even have to be a criminal laundering money. If your buying pattern just looks like you're trying to evade the threshold, that alone can trigger a suspicious activity report. And what information are we talking about here? Well, according to the sources, it's pretty much everything you'd expect: your full legal name, your social security number, your address, and all the details of your transaction. This information is then reportedly sent to FinCEN, that's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, creating a permanent federal record that connects you directly to your precious metals. Okay, so let's just recap for a second. We've seen the massive public lies from a company like FTX, and now we're seeing the alleged rise of this private surveillance. So in an environment like this, how on earth does a regular person protect their wealth and their privacy? Well, one of our sources offers up this incredibly powerful proverb as the answer. And the idea behind it is simple. In the world of finance, your mouth isn't your asset. It's actually your biggest liability. The less you say, the safer you are. And this really illustrates the 5 core principles of that financial silence perfectly. Number 1, don't reveal your exact net worth because you'll just become a walking bank to all your friends. 2, never announce your next move because just talking about it can kill the execution. 3, don't explain your unique edge because once you do, you lose it. 4, don't reveal inheritances, as that knowledge can totally destroy someone's drive. And finally, number 5, don't broadcast your good deeds. Real character is built in private. The source material uses this really powerful analogy for this idea. It's called the dark forest of wealth. Think about it. If you're walking through a dark forest at night, turning on a flashlight doesn't attract friends. It attracts predators. And it's the same idea with money. Broadcasting your financial success attracts envy, it attracts lawsuits, and it attracts sabotage. So silence isn't really about hiding. It's a kind of strategic camouflage that lets you operate without all that resistance. And so that brings us right back to where we started. In a world that's just full of public lies and increasingly private surveillance, a world where information is absolutely everywhere, maybe the most valuable asset you can have is the one thing nobody can track, nobody can tax, and nobody can take from you: your silence. Could that be the final, unbreakable store of value? Definitely something to think about.